True breakthrough will come not when we create an artificial intelligence that can think, but one that can feel.
I heard they're testing a program to upload human brains.
The animated show Pantheon is one of the best works of science fiction I have seen, and I'm forever grateful to the community for suggesting it to me. After watching it, it does raise a lot of ethical questions. I mean, a lot doesn't even begin to cover it, and there are also a ton of philosophical discussions to be had about this as well. So spoilers ahead for those who've not watched the show, and I actually encourage you to go do it because it will make you think. And it's so well written and well acted that at times you might even forget it's animated. It is so well done and filled with substance to the point where I want to watch it again. Pantheon is an animated sci-fi drama that explores the digital afterlife concept. It revolves around the idea of uploaded intelligence, where human minds are uploaded into digital form after death, creating powerful digital beings known as UIs, which is short for uploaded intelligences. The story follows Maddie, a teenage girl who discovers that her deceased father, David, has become one of these UIs and is still present in the virtual realm. Along with other characters who are similarly connected to uploaded loved ones, they uncover a global conspiracy by tech corporations exploiting this technology. The show weaves together personal struggles, family dynamics, and ethical dilemmas about consciousness, identity, and technological advancements, offering a gripping narrative that merges human drama with speculative tech. Pantheon provides a vivid and often unsettling glimpse into the future as we grapple with rapid advances in artificial intelligence. The show's predictive storyline resonates strongly with current developments in generative AI due to the several compelling themes. The idea of digital consciousness is one of the most intriguing elements in Pantheon. The narrative revolves around these UIs or uploaded intelligences, where human minds are preserved digitally after death. Not very different from the show Upload, which literally uses the same term and is an amazing show. For example, Maddie's father David becomes one of these UIs after his passing, allowing his consciousness to exist within a digital realm. He continues to guide Maddie despite being removed from his physical body, bringing the concept of uploaded intelligence to life. With the rapid rise of AI-generated memorials and chatbots, which aim to replicate the personality and memories of deceased loved ones, Pantheon feels remarkably close to where our technological trajectory is headed. The show also delves into how corporations exploit digital technology for their own benefit. A notable storyline involves the global tech companies using these uploaded minds as tools rather than respecting their identities and agency. Similarly, today, tech giants are in a race to develop the most advanced AI systems, hoping to capture market share while ignoring ethical concerns around personal data. Just as companies in Pantheon manipulate their UIs, some tech firms prioritize profit and market control over consumer privacy and security. The show Pantheon doesn't shy away from addressing the ethical dilemmas associated with preserving or replicating human consciousness. As UIs interact with one another and maintain ties to their living family members, they raise profound questions about identity and autonomy. In a similar fashion, generative AI today forces us to confront challenges around the ethical use of AI-generated content, such as creating realistic avatars or mimicking creative works. The show Pantheon also explores the unintended consequences of digital consciousness. One example is how Maddie's family struggles to adjust to David's digital existence, which adds complexity to their grief and poses challenges to their personal lives. In reality, we're still in the early stages of understanding the impact of generative AI across fields like journalism, education, and art, where unexpected consequences could radically reshape these sectors. And furthermore, Pantheon examines the impact of technological change on families and society. The show reveals how these developments ripple through family dynamics and societal structures, as seen when Maddie forms a sibling-like bond with a smaller AI entity, a cloud interface named Mist. Even without biological ties, this bond shows how relationships can transcend traditional family norms. So in summary of all of this with the show, Pantheon aligns with our current trajectory in AI development, hinting at how these advancements could profoundly reshape humanity, ethics, and society as we know it. It compels the viewers to reflect on the implications of our rapidly advancing digital world, both in terms of its potential and its dangers. So for this podcast-style video, I wanted to delve into all the possible issues or questions that arose for me personally in the show, and what the show covered, and what that would look like for humanity were we to implement that. One of the things the show covers that I find to be so thought-provoking is is the nature of consciousness. Pantheon examines whether UIs are the same people if they are essentially digital copies of their original physical bodies or selves. It questions the essence of human identity, whether holding onto one's thoughts, memories, or emotions is sufficient to claim humanity, even in the absence of a physical body. This idea is particularly exemplified when Maddie interacts with her father's UI, forcing her and the audience to consider whether the digital version of her father still truly represents him. It also challenges us to redefine humanity. Pantheon asks whether these uploaded entities, which continue to display empathy, purpose, and rationality and love like they did in their human form, should still be considered human. The UI's interactions with each other and their families push the audience to ponder if the loss of a biological body should strip an entity of its human status. We also see an evolution of family ties, and the series expands on the idea that strong emotional bonds can transcend biological connections. It depicts scenarios where digital entities lacking physical form still manage to hold significant familial roles through emotional support, care, and love. And then we have those ethical boundaries, which Pantheon challenges the viewers to rethink around digital life and how it's perceived. The show raises questions about the rights that UI should have and how society should recognize and treat them if they retain personalities similar to humans. Is it the memories and consciousness that we hold that defines our humanity, or our physical biology and the workings of our organic bodies that define us? And the series, I love how it illustrates that the line between human and artificial isn't that clear cut. And it kind of urges us to consider a future where human essence may transcend the limitations of our bodies, of our biological existence. And even after knowing all this, I was left with a question that I think everyone would end up asking while watching the show, or a show like this. If we had this technology, would you upload? It would mean giving up a lot of your agency though, in terms of trusting people on the outside to keep you running and not shut down your server. I mean, we're kind of doing the same thing now in our everyday life by trusting that an asteroid won't come out of nowhere and annihilate the entire human race. We're trusting the government to some extent because we're compelled to in order to live in a country that claims to be free but no longer feels free due to intense restrictions for the sake of protection and safety via surveillance and all these other restrictive elements. There's another show that I watched that I mentioned briefly at the beginning of this video called Upload, and it tackles the same issues, but Pantheon seems to expand on all of them in a more serious way. Upload has a more comedic element to it. So here are all the really hard questions that I began to throw out there as I was watching and even after. This demonstrates just how pivotal the show was for me, because well after I finished the series, I'm still asking these questions. For instance, would it be ethical if you had life in your human body but chose to upload, thereby terminating your human body, even if you were not sick or old, just for the purpose of uploading? Since through uploading, you're not truly ever dead. Is it considered killing? Would people see that as self-termination? And would it be seen as unethical when it becomes the norm to upload? The whole purpose of why self-termination is so taboo is because people don't know what comes after. And for all the evidence that we have at this moment, nothing does. To everyone else, you just cease to exist, and you only exist in their memory of you or what people choose to tell other people about you. And even if you're religious and you believe in an afterlife, there's no actual hard, tangible evidence of it. But if your grandma uploads and you can still go visit her in VR and she is still her and retains all of her memories and experiences and her love for you, then is it truly killing? Is it truly still taboo in that circumstance? You only have one life on this planet in this human body. But if it's a miserable one and you can upload and have a better one, wouldn't you? Yes, you'd be trading off living in the real world, but if uploading and living in a digital space becomes indistinguishable from reality in the way they portray in The Matrix, where you can't tell reality from fantasy from being uploaded, does it matter? I listened to an entire series that is one of my favorites called Pendragon. I don't want to spoil too much because I implore anyone who loves sci-fi or sci-fi adventure or time and dimensional travel, they need to check the series out. So please tap out for a few minutes. I actually implore you to listen to it on Audible or some other form of audio because it's actually dramatized and done so well. We hear things from Bobby Pendragon's point of view, and I'll never forget the specific volume of the story where in book 4, Bobby Pendragon goes to the territory of Velox and discovers that the entire planet, or territory as they call it, exists where like 90% of the population are plugged into this VR called Lifelight. The very few humans that exist outside of the VR, or virtual reality for people who don't know, are only there for the purpose of taking care of the ones that are plugged in, similar to what happened in the Matrix, except that the machines are the ones taking care of the plugged in humans. Once VR life becomes indistinguishable from reality, but you can basically live in any reality, create any reality that you want within this virtual space, why would you even want to experience real life anymore? Let me say that again in layman's terms. You walk outside right now, you go into a forest or a park, you take off your shoes, and you enjoy the sensation or the feeling of the grass between your toes, which honestly would make me cringe because I hate things going between my toes. But you know what it feels like. You can smell the air, you can ingest food, you can drink water, you can feel the touch and the warmth of another human being or an animal. You, at the moment, believe that what you're living in right now, your existence, is in fact reality. What if it is a simulation? You would not be able to tell it is a simulation because to you, it's very real. It is real. It is your existence. So what's the difference if you go into VR and you can't tell the difference? You wouldn't even feel the need to unplug because at some point you would forget that you're living in a simulation. You would forget that you need to unplug in the first place because it's indistinguishable from actual reality. It becomes a new reality. It's like teleporting from where you were to another place. Many people are suffering, and there's not enough resources for absolutely everybody, especially with the way we're mismanaging things on Earth. Not everyone can be rich, but what if you could create a reality where you can afford anything and live as though you are without taking from others? You always wanted to go to Mars or travel to some distant planet that nobody's ever discovered? You can do it. You want to meet new animals and tame a whole civilization of them? You can do it. You want to recreate a Spore type game, but make it real and be a god of ancient civilization through different animals and species and watch how they evolve and adapt based on what you are able to create in their environment or how you terraform their geography? You can do it. You want to be a deity and create beings to worship you? You can do it. You want nothing but pain and suffering? You can create that. You want to fall in love with a woman or a man of your dreams? You want to have a real relationship with arguments and everything, or maybe just peace all the time? You want to create the perfect man or woman or plural or whatever species that you can have a relationship with? Your ideal person with the right amount of arguments and right amount of good times? You want to have that toxic relationship where your life isn't actually physically in danger? You can achieve that. You want to live out the ultimate fantasy that you can only ever dream of and can't achieve in real life? Well, being plugged in or uploaded would give you that. It would grant you that freedom. This raises other ethical questions too, such as, what if you're someone who wants to commit crimes like murder? Would you be allowed to live out the fantasy of being a serial killer in this virtual reality? You can already do that in games like Grand Theft Auto, where you can go around killing everyone. It's not real, but when it becomes indistinguishable from reality, does that change the ethics? Or is it just another video game because it's not actually real? If that becomes your life and existence, then is it wrong? If it's only your fantasy and no one is actually harmed because it's all in a simulation with NPCs, is it wrong? If they're all computer generated and everything you create in the sim is from your imagination as a prompt, and we're talking about children, women, and innocent people who aren't real, is it unethical? How are they indistinguishable from you? Because remember, in this world, it's it is indistinguishable from reality. That's the point. It feels like it is reality. Can people like that truly be rehabilitated in that setting instead of in a place driven by money? They would still have the same brain patterns that give them those thoughts and desires to prey on people, but would the urges still be there? The carnal urges, I mean. If we no longer need to eat or pee and only do all that stuff out of habit, not due to an urge, would that be the same thing for people like serial killers? When scanning someone's brain, and if we have that technology, wouldn't we also have the technology to remove that part of them? Do we owe it to them to fix that person, or do we still punish them for everything they did while they were broken? And as for the serial killer or ex-serial killer living out this fantasy in their new sim, do the people in the world they or anyone else created have rights? That wouldn't make sense because you created them and they're essentially just a program or a simulation. But then, so are you if you become uploaded based on Pantheon's logic. So do those NPC people in that world have rights? I mean, in the world that you're in, they would technically, because that's what the simulation calls for, which makes it more exciting to be a serial killer because you feel as though you're living in the real world where those people do have rights and you're taking that away from them. See where I'm going with this? So that would mean that the NPCs in the video games we play now have rights as well, by that logic. Then again, it's easy for us to distinguish reality from fantasy, most of us anyway. So when you shoot a bunch of pixels, it doesn't feel real. Then again, you have people like me who see a video game dog and still don't want to hurt them. I can't bring myself to. Even though I know they're not real, because they look lifelike and evoke empathy, even if they don't look lifelike, they could be a little chibi dog, but it still evokes that deep empathy in me, making me think of my own dogs. Is it healthy for society if serial killers or unstable people can live out their fantasies without actively killing anyone? Let's say in the Pantheon universe, instead of keeping serial killers in prison where they can breathe real air that they denied their victims and eat real food that they denied their victims, we could upload them into a simulation where they can live out those fantasies. Or let's assume that serial killers turn themselves in before they become serial killers, I guess, and ask to be uploaded so they don't have to hurt anyone, knowing they would still have those urges because they're broken inside and they feel the pull to commit those crimes. Is it ethical to let them upload so they can create their own simulation and live out their killing fantasies without physically hurting anyone? Or should we use this uploaded simulation as an eternal prison, keeping them in solitary confinement and punishing them for the crimes they committed, or in this case, would have committed? And then how are they indistinguishable from someone who wouldn't do those things in real life, but has no problem living out those fantasies in video games like we all do in GTA? If they're not actively hurting anyone because they're no longer living in a physical space where they can, is it wrong to allow them to do so in an uploaded environment where they're cut away from everyone? But if they've already committed those crimes in the real world, it wouldn't be justice. Shouldn't family members have the right to upload themselves or temporarily visit via VR and exact revenge by torturing this person? Does the justice system and sentencing change when people can essentially live forever? Or is the punishment the death penalty by not uploading? If the killer wants to die, do we grant them their wish? Or do we make their punishment to live forever in agony in an uploaded state? Life sentences work in our current reality because humans don't live that long. If an upload can live forever, would we want this person living forever? And would it be humane for them to spend eternity being punished? They did rob another person of their eternity. That raises another question. What if a serial killer takes someone's life, but that person's consciousness is uploaded so they can live forever? Is it still considered murder? Would the killer receive the same sentencing as before when people couldn't be uploaded? If the victim was already planning to be uploaded, should it be counted as murder? Does the definition of murder change when no one ever truly dies except for their physical body? When humans no longer physically exist and everyone lives in an uploaded reality, would serial killers and predators truly be unethical if they're creating characters that don't technically exist, like puppies, and offing them for joy? If it's indistinguishable from reality for them, is it a problem if they're not harming other UIs, human consciousnesses, or even animal consciousnesses, if we can figure that out? Is it only unethical because we're corporeal and our lives are finite? Many crimes against humanity involve taking something away from the victims, which is what makes them unethical, as we wouldn't want it done to us. But if nothing is actually being done to anyone, can we still argue that it's unethical, especially if it's not technically real and no physical or emotional harm is being done to anyone who is actually real? Would our definition of real change? Would artificial intelligence still be the same if we are now a step closer to being artificial ourselves? If you're in the real world and have a relationship with another human being, is it cheating if you go in VR and make love to someone else when you're not actually physically with them? We already have VRs with haptic suits for men and women, where a man can use a device that squeezes around his la and stimulates him in sync with the actions on screen, and there's a similar setup for women. My husband and I actually had a very deep conversation about this since we love talking about such topics. It's easy to see how people could become addicted to it because they could live out fantasies with someone else without physically cheating, but my husband is firmly against it. I then posed the question, what if it were with an NPC, but using the same machine? He still didn't approve. I thought about his perspective and realized I'd be okay with it up to a point, but not if it became addictive. There's a fascinating episode of Black Mirror that explores a similar concept without spoiling too much, and I love how the show makes you ask these questions and pushes boundaries. If you're in VR and you raise a child in the simulation, spending 6 years in real time raising them in VR, with the child learning through AI and what you teach, should there be laws to ensure you're not negligent or harming the child, even though the child is technically an NPC creation from your sim? Or would people get obsessed because their baby now lives in that universe, or their loved one is there, kind of like what happened with WandaVision? Why would people even have relationships in the real world if everything they have in the uploaded reality or VR is better than what they'd have in the real world? When you can no longer tell the difference, why not? What if you have a child outside and you both upload? Who takes care of the child? And what laws would govern uploading a minor? Pantheon touches on this and requires someone to be 18 before they can choose to upload, otherwise their parents must decide for them. So parents can choose whether their child uploads or not. What are the ethics of that? Just like I don't agree with making permanent life-altering decisions for minors that they could later regret, I also believe someone should wait until they're 18 before making that choice. They might want to live out their adulthood as humans before uploading, and they might regret not doing so later. The world might become a better place to live through healing if fewer humans inhabit it. I'm sure it would breathe a huge breath of proverbial fresh air with way less humans physically taking up space or making a footprint. People living on Earth might be somewhat wealthier also, the ones that are still remaining, because those still running their businesses would need the remaining population even more due to the decreased competition. In the uploaded world, there would still be work and businesses. Would religions change? Some religions already adapt to avoid dying out, which some say defeats the purpose. But it works to keep people involved, and they selectively interpret religious texts to retain their followers. It makes sense that uploading would eventually be accounted for. Initially, people would be opposed, claiming that it's devilry because it contradicts their religious beliefs and doesn't align with their traditional doctrine. But how many would begin to accept it when they have a child or family member who has endured endless pain due to cancer? How many children barely got their life started before being diagnosed with terminal cancer at like age 5? Who would tell them that they can't have a full life by being uploaded? And if there was a law against minors uploaded, would it be circumvented for children in this specific situation? What about those with progeria or other illnesses that leave them disfigured in reality, constantly in pain, sad and lonely, but in the uploaded world, they can have whatever they want, be whatever they want. Always stay young, always stay fresh, never have pain. Would we deny them that wish? Would we force them to live out their entire adulthood in pain and anguish in those situations? I mean, physical pain and anguish. We no longer need to simply pat them on the head and tell them they're brave and help them out by building them a bear. Now these kids have a chance to live life to the fullest. People can work jobs in this world too. And it wouldn't matter because they live forever. For them, working would just be a fraction of their lives because they can process things in half the time or less. That said, they can't do physical labor, so that part is out of the equation unless they all take control of the robotics now on Earth. We could still defend the planet with everyone in the servers utilizing robotics, and the AI would work alongside humans who are now uploaded. Would we then depend strictly on the robots to repair and protect the servers? If humans needed to go to war against another faction or alien race, they would control the AI unless an instrument knocked out all electronics, which could happen. And what is the backup plan for all the uploaded people if that does happen? And would the age of consent for such a permanent situation be much older because of that? We're not just talking about altering a part of the body that will permanently affect life on Earth. We're talking about forever. Essentially, eternity. I could see AI consciousness becoming a reality because humans would ask these questions and realize that they'll eventually die out if fewer people are physically reproducing. They're having children inside the uploaded virtual realities, and so the human population will dwindle as we know it, and everyone will exist as digital beings. This means AI would need some level of awareness to take over if something happens and humans can't access them. The AI would be able to detect if something is hurtling towards Earth and could build underground bunkers in record time, so they don't need to eat or sleep either. And neither do the humans in the uploaded environment, so that would be totally accessible, totally achievable by this time, because nobody would need food, air, or even medicine. And once humans are no longer physically on the planet, we'd have all the time in the world and the processing power to develop new technologies for visiting other planets and exploring the world around us using machinery. Without being tied to our physical needs and carnal desires due to the lack of corporeal bodies, we could find focus on space travel and exploration and enhancing processing power to be very achievable in the ready and now. We could focus on technology that makes a server smaller, yet capable of holding more storage and impervious to solar flares. In Pantheon, it's fascinating because they found a way for uploaded people to experience the world through clones or bodies. So if we establish ourselves on another planet, we can upload our consciousness into a cloned body or make one lickety-split so we can experience the world around us and we can do tests and experiments without worrying about dying. Maybe only the body will die, but that's about it. Death will be a thing of the past for us by that time. It won't be in our vocabulary any longer. Of course, there are so many questions in terms of ethics. For example, people that would be uploaded into this new virtual reality, would they have the right to vote on things in the outside world? Would it even be fair to them when they don't have to live in it, but their children and descendants do? Will there be unions? Because I'm sure that human beings will give them heavier jobs in the uploaded world to do in terms of data and online things and even remote AI control, which would free up a lot of time for humans to take on other jobs and progress. Even if UIs or uploaded intelligences don't get tired and they technically live for all eternity, is it still ethical to have them working for long swaths of time with the threat of, or under the threat of terminating them permanently if they don't? And then with the human beings in the real world having so much control over the servers, how would the uploaded people strike or protest? And if they decide to hack into machinery to do it, they become terrorists and a threat to humankind. However, most of the population by this time would have family and loved ones who are uploaded as well. I mean, the fear that would have been there initially would dissipate once the people in the real world can VR visit their uploaded parents or children who've passed away. The kids with cancer or handicap malformities can live out their lives and adapt to grow their bodies in ways that they could never in the real world because of the limitations set by their conditions or illnesses, or just being human. Would people uploaded feel a sense of superiority because they can live longer? Are sentences for people in the real world made longer if they end up killing someone and the person doesn't get a chance to upload, versus them killing someone's human body but then being able to save their brain so they can upload them? The things I love about Pantheon is that you can ask an endless amount of questions, ones that we really don't have the answers to right now. Pantheon pose a lot of these philosophical and ethical conundrums that are questions we legitimately have to start thinking about from now, because that reality is so much closer to us than you think. I can't thank you guys enough again for referring me this animated show, because it really has inspired me to truly think. With AI becoming a normal part of our world, even now, I think access to this type of technology will become second place, and we'll have to ask these questions as these tech advancements are being formed so we can adapt alongside them. I feel like that's the only way. And here's a question for you guys. If you love someone so much and they were the only one for you, would you upload to be with them? Would you still hold a relationship with them if you lost that partner and, sit inside of a bathtub in your room in a haptic suit and make love to them that way? Would they even stay faithful to you in there, or feel the need to, since they could connect with people even past physically, something that is so far restricted to them in the real world because of your human body? You wouldn't just be able to make love to them. And everything that you experience while making love here on Earth is divine. But when you're existing as an essence, an entity without a restrictive physical body, you not only can experience it in that way because everything feels real there, but you can experience it past that. It would be unlike anything you ever experienced on Earth. It would be like literal heaven to you. Why would you even settle with the real world simulation? It's a good question to ask. Is your marriage truly over if someone uploads? Are they still legally married because technically they still exist? Or does that free you from marriage? I mean, the vows are till death do us part. Are you dead? Does that mean physical death, or do they have to amend that? with the marriage vows. You know, like, wouldn't it make relationships between uploaded people and physical people even that more difficult because physical people could never truly understand? So many questions. I love it. Well, if you made it to the end of the video still, you should still check out Pantheon. It is amazing. And if you absolutely love sci-fi and thought-provoking shows, this is one of those on the top of my list. Aside from Star Trek and Pendragon, definitely love the philosophical conundrums, because there are a lot of those questions that I don't have answers to, and I know a lot of people don't, but it's important to discuss so we can maybe arrive at some kind of answer, or as close to one as we can get before we get to that bridge and have to cross it.